In this video, I'm going to show you how you can fix your sleep. Whether you want to troubleshoot it, improve it, or optimize it, there's plenty of good information for everybody. So let's begin. Okay, so there's a few basics which we won't cover in much depth. I'm hoping you already know these, right? So you want to sleep in a cool, dark room. They say about 18 degrees Celsius is close to optimal. Of course, you want it to be dark because any light sources coming in will, of course, disturb your circadian rhythm. So no stimulants late in the day, things like Coke, coffee, etc. So limiting alcohol before bed is a great idea. No heavy meals prior to bed. Also having a lot of processed foods, things like monosodium glutamate and other additives, chemicals in food can be excitotoxic to the nervous system. So it can stimulate the nervous system, which can prevent either falling asleep or staying asleep. And then, of course, limiting device usage or screen time prior to bed is very important. You don't want to be blasting your face with blue light just before you go to bed. So these are kind of the basics. We'll go into a little bit more depth on what you can do to either fix or optimize your sleep. We can categorize several types of different sleep problems. So you may not be able to fall asleep easily. You also may be waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to fall back asleep. Or you might be waking up early in the morning and you cannot go back to sleep. Also, you may be waking frequently. So there's a few different ways to tackle these individual problems. We'll get into that in a little bit, but first we'll cover why does this happen. So why do we get disturbed sleep? So stress is the number one cause, right? Stress can be external or internal. It can be overt or hidden. For example, if you have a fight with somebody, or if there's loud music or something like that, these are overt stresses that you can identify quite easily. A hidden stressor, that is something you don't know about, so for example inflammation, some type of infection, that can prevent you from sleeping well. So these can be hidden from you, and it requires a little bit of inspection to find them. And probably the worst or the most difficult stressor to find is something that is internal and hidden, like I said, like an infection, for example. So we have three categories of stressors as well: mental, emotional, so psychological stuff going on that can obviously mess with your sleep; physical, so pain, structural, trapped nerves, things like that. If your spine is out of alignment, that can, if you're sleeping in a bad position for you, that can really mess with your sleep. Then biochemical, so again, these can be internal and hidden stressors, so it takes a little bit of detective work to figure out what's going on. But we'll start with the first problem, which many people have, is you cannot fall asleep. So this is usually because your nervous system is overstimulated or your mind is overstimulated. Also, it can be because your body is not getting the signal to sleep. So the biggest culprits here are things like blue light, too much blue light in the evening and not enough during the day. What you want to do is, when you wake up, as soon as you can, you want to get as much natural light exposure as possible. That kind of resets your circadian rhythm. This actually makes it easier to fall asleep in the evening. Now, on the other hand, when it's evening time, you want to reduce blue light at least an hour, but preferably more before you fall asleep. There's a few ways to do that, and I'll show you a couple now. So the first thing you might want to do is use blue light blocking glasses when you use a computer. So I have these ones. They block out half of the blue light during the day. So these are when you're using a computer or have indoor lighting blasting at you. You use these to block a little bit of the blue light coming at you, right? So then an hour to 2 hours, depends on what time of the day it is. You want to put on proper blue blocking glasses. So these block out all of the blue light, and what happens is they're almost simulating darkness for your eyes, at least for the light receptors in your eyes. And what happens then is you can still use your devices, you can still do stuff. Obviously, you cannot do things like drive a car and you want to be careful you don't stub your toes into something you cannot see, because any blue or any blue objects of that spectrum of light, kind of they almost become invisible, right? But you do this an hour or two, like I said, before bed, and it really helps you kind of basically get the body in a state of, okay, it's dark, it's time to activate whatever mechanisms there are physiologically to get the body to start falling asleep. So usually that can mean secreting melatonin, the sleep hormone as it's known, and things like that. So this, I think, if I leave you with one tip, it's probably this: blocking the blue light at night, an hour to 2 hours. That's what I do every night with these. Is probably the number one thing you can do, because you know very well everybody is on their devices. There's indoor lights, there's all sorts of light, and people switch off the light and then they expect to go to sleep. And that's not how the human body was designed. We were designed to get a signal it's dark, and now we're going to fall asleep. So I won't belabor the point, but if there's one quick fix you can do, it's having these glasses. And they're perfect for if you get up at night, either to change diapers or to just go to the bathroom. You put these on, and you basically have minimal disturbance to your sleep with them, right? So definitely worth looking into. So yeah, another couple of things: food and exercise late at night are also things that can disturb your circadian rhythm. So you want to stop eating at a few hours before bed, and stop stimulating activities like exercise. You want to stop those as well. The longer or the later into the night you do these things, that is eating or exercise, the more your body is stimulated. It's still time to be awake, right? So you need to finish up with exercise a few hours, let's say 3-4 at least, if you can. And same with your last meal of the day, should be quite early, as early as you can, right? So that's that. If it's psychological, then we have we all have plenty of things to think about: stresses, mental, emotional, psychological issues that can prevent us from sleeping. So a great tool for that for you is to look into what is known as tapping or emotional freedom technique. So I'll have a link in the description to a great kind of starter video where the guy just goes through the whole technique in a few minutes. But what it is, in essence, is there's a few meridians on your face and body. They're kind of acupuncture or acupressure meridians. So you basically think whatever the issue you have that's bugging you, you bring it up. You bring up that feeling, and then you tap on these. There's 7 of them. You tap like this, and there's the whole routine, So you started at the eyebrow, below the eye, next to the eye, and so on. 7 places, very easy. And what happens is, while you bring up this kind of negative feeling or whatever is stressing you out, and you tap on these acupressure meridians, what happens is the body is given a signal that everything is okay. So it's kind of like a safety signal, like a relaxation signal. So what happens is you are able to dissociate from the thought, that the feeling and the thought, you can dissociate them. So you can entertain the thought, you can think about whatever it is that's bugging you without that creating this negative energy or this negative emotion that precipitates more negative thinking and things like that. So it's a really powerful technique. They've even used it for soldiers or people that have been in kind of accidents, that have PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's a really powerful tool. It's very simple. It's free to do. Definitely check it out. If you cannot fall asleep or you wake up in the middle of the night, use this. Figure out what it is that's bugging you, or even the thing that could be that you want to tap on or do the technique is the fact that you cannot fall asleep. So again, get into it. Watch a couple of videos. There's books about it. I'll include a book I've read about on the topic as well below. Check it out. It could be a game changer for you if you have issues falling asleep. Now, another tool that I've had great success with is just playing Tetris before you fall asleep. This is, it will surprise you how well this works. The only caveat here is that Tetris is really, really addictive. So be careful, because at first, for me, it worked. I was falling asleep fast, without crazy thoughts running through my mind, all this stuff. However, after a while, you get good at Tetris, and then you want to play another game, and you want to try to beat your record. So try to set a time limit, maybe 10 minutes, have an alarm ring, and then phone away. Obviously, wear your blue blockers. You don't want to be blasting your face with the Tetris just before bed. So do it smart. Do it smart. But yeah, it's addictive. It's a great way to help you fall asleep. Okay, and then there's another thing you can use is melatonin, which is like a hormone. It's the sleep hormone, as it's been dubbed. It has other functions in the body, of course, but this is more of a crutch. Keep in mind, it can help you in a jam if you have a important meeting tomorrow or whatever, and it's a good way to get you sleeping, but it doesn't take care of the root cause of why you're not sleeping. So you want to always find and address the root cause of what's causing the issue. It's okay to use things like this once in a while or for a while you figure out and address the root cause. Sure, it's fine, but try not to become reliant on it, is the point. Okay, so we covered melatonin as a supplement. There's a few other supplements if you cannot fall asleep that can help you. So there's one called GABA, G-A-B-A, gamma aminobutyric acid, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. It really helps with just calming down the mind, just kind of it relaxes basically puts you in what's known as a parasympathetic state. So that's something you can buy in most supplement stores. Glycine, which is an amino acid and also acts like a neurotransmitter. So it's a simple amino acid. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, as you may know. And glycine is, again, it's an inhibitory amino acid. So, and it can also help with getting to sleep and sleeping deeper and things like that. Taurine is another amino acid that you can find in most health shops. It also kind of has these calming effects on the body, so that's also a viable option. Now, zinc, calcium, and magnesium, these are what are known again as parasympathetic minerals. So they actually help to calm and relax the nervous system. So taking those with your evening meal or as part of a multivitamin supplement or on their own can be really helpful in just calming you down. And obviously the health effects are manyfold. So pretty much everybody right now needs more zinc, magnesium, and even calcium. So it's going to do you good, but it can also help you sleep. ZMA, that's zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B6. That's another very common supplement. So if you find that, that's also really useful, helps with falling asleep. Then, the basics like chamomile tea, lavender, things like that, you can try those. They help. Then there's old classics, herbs like valerian, hops, passion flower, or some type of mix like that. That really helps. I use valerian sometimes, and it really kind of helps to just relax you. If you had a stressful day, or you have a busy day where your mind and your nervous system are really revved up, a little bit of valerian just to kind of take the edge off, instead of a glass of wine or a beer. It can really help with relaxing. And then you can also experiment with like essential oils, having a bedtime routine, meditating, a relaxation routine, this kind of stuff. Not device off, go to bed, expect to sleep. You need to kind of disconnect. And I think most people are aware of this nowadays, so I won't get into the whole bedtime routine. But if you're not doing that already, try to figure out something, even if it's just some light stretching that gently gives the body a signal, okay, it's time to relax and get into sleep mode. Next up, we have if you wake up in the middle of the night. So there's several potential problems here. It could be because your blood sugar fell. So when your blood sugar falls, the adrenal glands secrete cortisol in order to raise the blood sugar. So cortisol being a stress hormone, that can obviously it revs you up. So that can cause this waking up in the middle of the night because your blood sugar fell, cortisol, a stress hormone goes up, and you wake up and like basically the body you need to stabilize your blood sugar. You need to figure out strategies to keep your blood sugar more level during the night. And there's many ways to do that. There's many reasons why your blood sugar is dysregulated. So this may require a little bit more detective work. So a couple of things you would want to investigate is what are you eating before you go to bed or in the evening time. If you're eating, for example, a high carb meal, especially if there's an aspect of simple carbohydrates that raise the blood sugar fast, what happens then? Insulin is secreted by your pancreas to bring down the lower down the blood sugar, and then what happens is now your blood sugar is low, so the body needs to raise it, and the primary method of raising the blood sugar is cortisol. Cortisol is secreted and it breaks down tissues in order to raise energy for the body, as it were. So you need to figure out if you're eating high carb meals or something with like chocolate and fruit and things like that that could potentially mess with your blood sugar. You might want to perhaps eat a higher protein meal with a little bit more fat, a little bit less carbs, something that has a longer burn, as it were, right? It will give you more energy into the night. So that's one strategy. Another strategy that works really well for a lot of people is to have a small snack, maybe an hour before bed. Again, protein and a bit of fat. This kind. So, for example, sardines or something like that, with kind of a bit of fat, a bit of protein. Not like something that will burn stably and slowly out throughout the night. Probably the worst thing you could do is like honey and things like that, just spike your blood sugar. So you want something that's even. So that's one strategy with the blood sugar. The other thing that could be causing cortisol to be secreted in the evening, which can mess with your sleep, either in terms of falling asleep or waking up in the middle of the night, is if you have food sensitivities. So if you eat foods which you're intolerant to, that causes inflammation in your gut, and that immune reaction, that itself, it can be stimulatory. It's stressful. Cortisol may be produced again. So you want to make sure you're not reacting to the foods that you're eating. Now, another reason you might be waking up at night is if you have parasites or some type of gut infection. Parasites are more active during the night. So if you wake up, maybe you have an itchy butt, or you're sweating, you have weird dreams, or in the day-to-day life you might have something like constipation or diarrhea or other GI gastrointestinal issues, or you might have alternating constipation, diarrhea, things like that, or just a slower transit. These are all clues that you may have some type of parasite infection, or even just bacterial infections or yeast, candida, fungi. So it's well worth investigating further if that's the case. Again, it could be psychological. You might be up at night stressing over things, meetings, work, bills, kids, family, sick relatives, whatever. If that's the case, a simple strategy, like I mentioned earlier, is to do the emotional freedom technique, or the tapping. So tap on it, whatever your problem is, or even the fact that the problem is you're not able to fall asleep, just tap on it. Like, watch the video that I've included in the video description. It takes 7 minutes to learn how to do this, and then simply apply it every time you have an issue falling asleep or whatever. I should probably add as well that turning off devices around you, the Wi-Fi router in your house, anything with devices with lights or something that can vibrate or emit an LED light or stuff like that, anything that can potentially hinder a good sleep. You want to remove, get out of the room, or cover up, or switch off. So that should go without saying, but many people don't do these simple things, and then they wonder why they cannot sleep well. What can also help is something like a white noise generator, things like a fan, anything with a fan or something that kind of creates a little bit of background noise, just to almost distract the mind in a way, just to give a little bit of background noise. That can really help. Having a HEPA air filter also can help. They emit a little bit of noise, so that can drown out a little bit of outside noises, things like that. And then think about, are you maybe getting too cold during the night, or are you getting too warm during the night? That can be a problem. So if you're getting too cold during the night, obviously putting on more blankets and clothes is a good idea, figure that out. But something that I've read and heard is wearing socks can really help, because you basically you lose a lot of heat through the feet. So just warming up the feet allows the body to stress less about warming the extremities. Basically, the body may wake up at night because the extremities are cold, and it needs to figure out a way to warm them up. So if you take this out of the picture, take this factor out of the picture, it's one less thing that your body may be stimulated by to wake up. And then if you're getting too warm, again, everybody's situation is different, but there's one tool you can buy. It's called the chili pad, which is like the opposite of an electric blanket. Whereas an electric blanket, you put it under the bed to warm you up. What the chili pad does is it runs cool water underneath you. So it's a great way to cool you down and help you stay asleep. So next up, we have waking up early in the morning. So again, blood sugar dysregulation or pathogenic infections could be an issue. So look into that. Think about, what are you eating? Do you have signs and symptoms of potentially an infection of some kind? And then figure out what to do with that. It could be some other hormonal imbalance. It might not necessarily be cortisol. So it's worth kind of thinking about that a little bit more deeply. Another thing, it could be the brightness. So if you have the sun rising and that light is hitting your bedroom. So if you have the sun rising and that light is hitting your bedroom, comes through the window, it basically sends a signal to your brain that it's time to wake up. So making sure that the room is as dark as possible. Wearing a sleep mask can help a lot. It just helps the body remain in that darker state for longer, until your alarm rings or whatever, or until you're ready to wake up, until the body naturally decides, okay, I'm done sleeping, I've had enough rest for today. Then the temperature, think about the temperature. Is it rising? Is it dropping too much? Think about some strategies regarding keeping it more constant and more stable. If there's noise, maybe neighbors waking up, or cars outside, wearing earplugs can really help. Then there's a thing called an acupressure mat, which most people know what it is, but basically it's like a bed of nails. So you can, if you're having an issue with falling asleep, you can lay it on your bed, lie on it, and that kind of puts your body in this relaxed parasympathetic state. So that's a little strategy that I use sometimes. I just lie on the mat if I wake up at night. And I've had issues with all of these things, not being able to fall asleep, falling asleep, then waking up at 3 a.m. like for weeks, or for days and weeks, and then waking up too early. I've had all of these problems, so I figured out plenty of different strategies that work. Anything I recommend here I've probably tried, I think, except maybe the chili pad. Still haven't bought one of those, so that really works as well. And then another thing that a lot of people do is they wake up at night, they go to the bathroom, they switch on the light, they go to the bathroom, do their thing, and then they switch off the light and they go back to bed. And that's terrible. That's a terrible thing to do in the middle of the night. No hunter-gatherer or prehistoric man did that. You can imagine that we're not designed to do that. So that's where having these glasses, putting them on, is a good idea. Or if you can do if you can go to the bathroom without switching on the lights, if you know the way in your house and it's not dangerous up and downstairs or whatever, just go in the dark and figure out how to do it in the dark. It's actually not that hard. Don't kill yourself, of course, please. But that's another way to just not disturb your body's whole circadian rhythm. Once you flick on the light, even for a second, just your body jolts awake. So that's another tip. And then finally, if you just have poor overall quality sleep, there's a few things to think about. We've already covered most of them, right? But we'll just recap a little bit here. So blood sugar dysregulation, it's an internal hidden stressor in a sense. So people don't really think about this a lot. It's not the first thing someone would think about when they have sleep issues. So investigating a little bit further by, like I mentioned, what are you eating before bed? What's your diet in general? How's your blood sugar regulation? Figure out some strategies to give yourself a slower burning fuel for during the night. Something that won't raise your blood sugar, raise your insulin, and then have that plummet. Now your body's stuck and it needs to secrete stress hormones to raise the blood sugar again. It's very, very stressful on the body. It's not only a terrible strategy for good sleep, but it will age you faster. It will just cause stress and deterioration in the body. So you really want to keep your blood sugar as stable as you can. Then pathogenic infections, we covered that already. People would be surprised how many of us have these parasites or candida or bacterial infections. So think about the signs and symptoms: gut issues, skin issues, sleep issues. These are all signs and symptoms, not necessarily that you have it, but that you probably need to investigate a little bit there. Hormonal imbalances, they can also cause you, if your testosterone and estrogens are out of whack, not in balance, that can cause you a lot of issues with your sleep. Then inflammation, so food sensitivities, other gut problems, like again, pathogenic organisms, they can cause inflammation. Chronic infections, stuff like that, any type of inflammation. So think about, could there be an aspect of that causing you problems? Another quite common problem is mouth breathing, so breathing through the mouth during the night, or having a sleep apnea of some kind. That can really just overall give you really poor quality sleep. When you breathe through the mouth all night, you get dehydrated, you're not as well oxygenated, your body is more in a fight or flight state rather than a rest and digest state. What I mean by that is mouth breathing activates the sympathetic fight or flight nervous system, whereas breathing through the nose activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So there's many more reasons why mouth breathing is bad. So what we do is we simply take a little bit of 3M scotch or 3M tape, just this kind of paper tape, and you just tape your mouth at night, just before bed. Very simple like that, right? And what that does, it just forces you to breathe through the nose, and it can also reduce snoring. It can help a lot of people with a mild sleep apnea as well. So it's well worth. I guess the number one way to basically get an indication that you're mouth breathing at night is if you wake up at night to sip water, or you wake up with a very dry mouth. That usually means that you're mouth breathing. If that's the case, spend a couple of euro for this tape, and then you will likely be very impressed with the results. So that's all I'll say there. This is probably, other than the glasses thing, this is probably the other. If I only leave you with 3 tips, let's say, from this video, it's the glasses, the tape at night, and the tapping. So the emotional freedom technique, where you tap when you have some type of problem, mental, emotional, psychological. So those 3 things could really be a game changer for most people. And then also important to remember, are you getting enough sunlight during the day? As I mentioned at the start, you want to get as much as possible daylight during the day, and you want to reduce that blue light as much as possible after the sun sets. And we live in a world where it's like the opposite. People are stuck indoors at work all day, and then they go home and they're blasting themselves with TV screens and computers and phones and lights, indoor lights. So you need to reverse that as much as possible. This is probably another thing that I would leave as my top 5 tips for this video. There's a lot of things you can do, but this is just working with your natural circadian rhythm and Mother Nature, and not fighting Mother Nature. So that was it. Thank you for watching, and I genuinely hope that you use as many of these tips as you can to improve, optimize, or fix your sleep.